It sounds like a fairy tale, but not only that. This story of what man, by his science and practical inventions, has achieved on this earth, where he first appeared as a weakly member of the animal kingdom, and on which each individual of his species must ever again appear as a helpless infant, is a direct fulfillment of all or of most of the dearest wishes in his fairy tales. All these possessions he has acquired through culture. Long ago, he formed an ideal conception of omnipotence and omniscience, which he embodied in his gods. Whatever seemed unattainable to his desires, or forbidden to him, he attributed to these gods. One may say, therefore, that these gods were the ideals of his culture. Now he has himself approached very near to realizing this ideal. He has nearly become a god himself. But only, it is true, in the way that ideals are usually realized in the general experience of humanity. Not completely. In some respects, not at all. In others, only by halves. Man has become a god by means of artificial limbs, so to speak. Quite magnificent when equipped with all his accessory organs, but they do not grow on him, and they still give him trouble at times. Future ages will produce further great advances in this realm of culture, probably inconceivable now, and will increase man's likeness to a god still more. Sigmund Freud. Welcome to the Lost Traveler Podcast. I am your ever-loving host, Henry Cameron Allen. And today I'm meeting a new friend for the first time, Manuj Aggarwal, and he is a global thought leader. He is on the front, cutting edge of AI development from the beginning. He is the founder of, what is it called? Thought Noodle? No.
Tetra Noodle.
Tetra Noodle. I knew it had a noodle in it.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that. And you're an entrepreneur, and you really have a lot of vision, apparently, coming from humble beginnings.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about that before. Welcome to the Lost Traveler Podcast. I'm so excited to get into it with you.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. Thanks.
So what part of India did you come from?
I grew up in the north part, Punjab.
Punjabi. Wonderful.
Yeah. That's right.
I've not had the pleasure of visiting India. I've traveled all over the world my entire life. My whole foundation is global. I don't feel American in that sense. I am an American citizen, but I the day that they have a global citizen passport, I'm the first in line.
Yeah. I think we are not too far from there.
You know, I talk about this a lot because it's you know how the impression was that the earth was flat at one time. There are still some flat earthers out there that are a little goofy, but I think the earth is kind of flat again. I can have a real-time conversation with someone in British Columbia, where you live, or India or Brazil or China or Africa at the same moment, even across time zones, even across, so we are kind of playing with a vision of the world that is coming back to a level plane in a way.
Exactly. No, I mean, you can even see like a lot of the passports, like, you can see the European Union. Once you enter the European Union, you can sort of travel multiple countries. So that is empirical evidence of the things to come, right?
Do you think that that borders and nationalism are becoming passé?
Well, I believe if we look at history, it has been all about consolidation, right? So we started living in small clans, small groups, which consolidated into larger sort of settlements, and then they consolidated into like sort of smaller kingdoms, and then countries were born. And now, again, utilizing the example of Eurozone, utilizing the example of Canada and US, where it's a very porous border. So you can see like humans have always gone like if I draw a graph from the earlier times to now, we have always been in the favor of consolidation of land and bringing people together. That is our internal nature. And I may be like my point of view may be extreme, but I feel like it's just like a futile point to draw imaginary lines on the world map and say, okay, this is mine, this is yours, and then waste a ton of resources just defending that line. It's just kind of
It's
it doesn't make
unconscionable, and
sense.
we are waking up to that. I hope
Yeah.
that within our lifetime we
Mm,
will see some of that vanishing, because I have
mm,
family and friends who are indigenous peoples
mm,
that never recognize these false borders,
mm,
right? And
mm.
invisible lines and rivers
Yeah.
marking your territory and my territory. And they
Mm,
would, I mean, they were traveling from what we call Canada today,
mm,
through
mm,
what we call America today,
mm, mm.
down into Central and South America and back up
Yeah, yeah,
for trade
absolutely.
routes for thousands of years. This is all
Yeah,
very new within the last couple of centuries. And so I
yes.
think that there is that, for me anyway, that's hopeful, because it
Yeah,
didn't take very long to create it. And it may not take as long as we hope, as we expect it to, rather, to fix
I
it.
think I think there could be a middle ground where for administrative purposes you need local government, you need local touch points. So yeah, I mean that's okay. But as long as people don't stop fighting about these boundaries, then I think that's okay. And then uh, being able to travel freely, interact with other people. I mean that's what will bring the world together. So even if the imaginary lines stay for the good of the stuff rather than like fighting over stuff, then it's all okay, I think.
Sure. I'm not suggesting that we go back to a hunter-gatherer world,
Yeah, yeah,
but
absolutely,
I do
absolutely.
think that there should be some kind of redemption, uh,
Hmm.
where we come together and recognize that we all come from a source,
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
common source, a human,
Hmm.
the mitochondrial Eve, right?
Hmm.
And how do we get back to that? How do we get back to the common ground? Because it's
Hmm.
there, and when you recognize it's there, it's fertile, and,
Hmm.
and a
Hmm.
lot of good can come out of it. Um, but fear is king in the world right
Hmm.
now, and as I'm sure you agree, I mean, you're out there on the global stage with your work, and you're interacting with business leaders in the corporate sector, politicians, and the little guy as well, the entrepreneur and the dreamer. Um, do you experience that? Do you see
Yeah,
at,
yeah.
at different
Yeah.
tiers, different levels of fear, and where do you think that stems from?
Fear is yeah. I mean that's our state of mind right now, and it has been for a long time. I think the way our society has been built, fear drives people to do things, and especially today, a lot of what we experience in the world is based on the information we consume, and the information that we consume is already controlled by AI. I mean, it's been like more than since Facebook arrived at the scene around 2007, 2008. Everything that we know about the world or think about the world has been influenced or even controlled by AI. The headlines we read, the TV shows we watch, all of it is very much optimized to gain maximum attention, maximum traction. And people don't realize how powerful AI is to really understand human psyche. And when you optimize these algorithms, and especially if it's optimized by hardcore engineers, hardcore capitalists who do not have a deeper understanding of human consciousness, then they optimize it for maximum sensationalism, because sensationalism gives them the maximum attention as human nature is. And so once you put these pieces together, you can see, okay, if these this anxiety, this stress, this fear is created by technology, then it can also be reversed by technology. But it needs a combination of the person who understands technology and the person who understands human being, human consciousness. When you put that together, then the trend can be reversed.
A guy wire is a tensioned cable that is designed to enhance the stability of a freestanding structure. Think of me as your guy wire. In terms of life skills mentoring, you're perfectly capable of standing stably on your own 2 feet. But I'm a cable that can enhance your stability. I'm available for individual or couples counseling, life skills mentorship, child loss grief support, LGBTQ plus support. I can also officiate weddings, end-of-life ceremonies, baby namings, invocations, or whatever guidance you may need. I serve all genders, all ages. Sessions are affordable, discreet, private, and conducted online. Find me at guy-wire.org. Book your appointment today.
You know, I was, when we first met, I was sharing that I'm an international theater director, and the company that I'm co-founding is an international touring company called the Liminos Project. And Liminos infers the liminal space, the space between spaces. And it's an exploratory theater company that sort of expresses and experiments in that liminal space between the human physical and the human spiritual. And I really think that this is the crux of the conversation in our time, or it should be, where we need to recognize that we are both physical and spiritual beings, and that we have to find ways. This is why I'm passionate about life skills education. There are 8 billion people on the planet today. We are all learning the exact same essential universal life skills. We're talking about financial literacy, emotional literacy, environmental literacy, technology literacy, all of these things that are pertinent across cultures, across geography, that brings us to the common ground. But is it being taught in schools? Not very often. Is it being taught at home? Well, the parenting generation, which you and I both are, I think I read somewhere that you're a dad, right?
Yes.
But whether or not someone has children, we are of a certain age where we are in the parenting generation, and therefore young eyes are upon us. They're looking to us for how to be in the world. They're watching our moves, mostly through the internet, right? Through YouTube and TikTok. But so it's definitely through a filter. But when I've interviewed a lot of young people, and by young, I say 20 and under, and I ask them, where did you learn your life skills? Right? All the things I mentioned, plus nutrition, hygiene, grief is a universal life skill, isn't it? Sexual literacy, all of these things. Where did you learn those life skills? And 98.9% do not say from my parents. They say first from the internet. Right? You want to know something, go look it up on YouTube, right? Google it. The other one is from their peers, word of mouth, which can be dangerous the younger you are, because the interpretation of it may be off. And then also observing the world around them, the community that they're in, not only in their home, but in their school, in their family, in their community, city, state, country, and then globally. It's like, you know, it stands out. Where did you learn your life skills?
I think it has been a combination of, so first of all, you know, I when I started my career, I was working in a factory, and I think a lot of the life skills came from that, just being in that environment, dealing with people, seeing how the real world works at scale, and what are the dependencies between the complex systems that exist out there. Like in a factory, you have this orchestration of all these machines. You put raw material on one end and you get the finished product on the other end, but in between there are so many steps,
Right.
and each step is very manual. You have to like work with people. You need to make sure that you don't overproduce, you don't underproduce, all of that stuff. And then the external world, like as you said, like finances, you deal with the government, you deal with customers. All of those things were very annoying to me at that time, because I didn't want to deal with all of that. But I think it laid a very, very strong foundation in learning all of these things. So I'm grateful for that experience, although however painful it was. And that's what one other thing I learned. Like any experience you're going through, in the moment it may be very painful, or you may not make sense of it, but later on you realize how useful it was.
That's such an important conversation, especially with young people, I'm sure, as a parent. How old are your kids?
11 and 13.
Oh, perfect. They're right at that moment where they're crossing the threshold into their adolescence, right? So this is the time to lay the foundation. My grandmother used to say to me, raising kids is like building a house. It's all about the foundation. If you start out with a shaky foundation, that house is doomed to collapse in on itself at some point. But if you start with a strong foundation, the house can burn to the ground, but you can build it up again.
Yes,
right.
yes.
You can always go in and fix and reinforce, but that's very costly in both time and resources. Right. But if you really focus on starting with the foundation, but that's also not only child raising, that's business raising, that is dream raising and idea raising. I have always one think tank or another going on in all my different plates that I'm spinning. And one of them is universal life skills. And I'm working on a project right now. In fact, I'm calling Age-ication, because aging well is also a universal life skill. And nobody teaches us about it. We're relying on our own sensibilities and observances of how we navigate the world of aging, What do you think of that?
Everything that you're saying is basically true, because every stage of life you need different skills. And even understanding that realization that you don't know it all, and it's a very fluid and dynamic world. Because most people say, oh, I have a master's degree, now I'm done learning. I have a PhD, I'm done learning. Or even if they don't have education, they say, oh, I'm 40, you cannot teach new tricks to an old dog. So they just stop where they are. And so the idea is to understand that as you go through different stages of life, you obviously need different skill sets, and then find those people, find the skill to acquire that skill. That's another problem.
Well, and I really emphasize that these are not skills that people must learn. These are skills we are already learning in one measure or another, every single one of us. The question is not whether we're learning them, it's how well are we learning them, and from whom are we learning them, and what proficiency were they when they were expected. That's what I was getting at. We talked about the parenting generation. That we are the ones expected to impart these skills and lessons to elevate those skills in children. And I believe that it's important to do as parents and as in parenting generation community leaders, but also it needs to be formalized in schools. That's such an important conversation, I think. When you want to learn a different language, or if you want to learn a cooking technique, or if you want to learn a sport or business skills, right? You go and find an expert in that skill to mentor you and teach you so that you can become more proficient. Correct?
Exactly.
Who's going to life skills people with expertise in a particular? No one has expertise in all of them. right?
Yeah.
But based on our biographies and our engagement with our work, we all have one expertise or another. And those of us that are feeling that we must be helpers in this time, in this world, in our lives, we're here, we're ready. That's what the podcast is all about, is meeting some of these amazing people who have gone from, you know, you were talking about a lower level of living, a quieter life, you know, moving out of nature into a factory environment,
Exactly.
and then spreading wings that were probably bigger than you ever expected.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, are you like me, always looking for ways to make a positive impact in the world? Well, then join me in sponsoring Desire Childcare Organization. We are a legally incorporated, fully volunteer-based organization in Uganda, committed to providing essential needs, holistic arts-based education, and a safe family environment to 33 vulnerable children, ages 2 to 14. Your monthly sponsorship can help improve the lives of these kids toward a better future. Desire Childcare is different from any other charity I know because, well, we have zero administrative overhead. Every penny goes to the kids. And we have a plan toward self-sufficiency through agriculture, so support is temporary. It's kind of like a leg up. Visit desirechildcare.org to learn more and get involved. Let's empower and inspire the Desire kids together. Thanks.
Where was the pivotal moment for you? Do you recall that clicked you out of that misery of factory work and brought you to where you are now?
Well, one thing was, that painful experience prompted me to figure out, okay, what can I do to change my life? And then the question became, okay, in order to change my life, I need to create enough value in the world that will be valued more than the factory work I was doing. And so there you go. Then the quest became, okay, what is the skill that will help me create that in the world? And and then I basically started looking for that skill and landed on technology and programming, and I just loved it, because I was having so much fun working with technology. It didn't even matter how valuable it was. Now, luckily, it turned out to be quite valuable. But that realization, I needed to build value, then looking for that skill, learning that skill, getting better at it. So those were the steps I took. And then also, once you are in that skill, how can you go deeper and deeper and make sure that you're not just doing what you have been taught, but how do you finesse it? How do you become really a master at it? How do you impact more people with what you have learned? And how do you make those decisions strategic and tactical to say, okay, in 5 years I want to be here, so what will lead me today to get to that point? Those are the type of things you have to start doing. So one thing I always find missing in a lot of people, and I think I was, again, maybe I think differently, or my mind has been wired differently. It's about, first of all, creating a vision that is so vivid that you say, okay, that's exactly what I want to experience. So that clarity most people don't have. They just say, okay, i want to I want to be rich, I want to make $1 million.
Right.
So that is not very clear exactly what does that mean. And so once you have the clear vision, it's magical how you can push through to that
Magical
level.
is the word for it. I remember when the book The Secret came out, and it was talking about the law of attraction. And there was a companion video that went with it. And I remember sitting there and watching this with my son, who was, he was probably 11 at the time. And we were sitting there watching it, and it was very interesting, but it was all about the material. It was all about the biggest house and the biggest car and the biggest bank account and the biggest belt buckle. But one thing that I took away from it, as did my son Cameron, was that the moment where they talked about the power that we have is represented in the character of the genie in Aladdin from 1001 Arabian Nights, right? Aladdin rubs the lamp and the genie emerges and says, what? Do you remember?
I will grant you 3 wishes.
Wrong.
What?
The genie in the originals, that's what it became later. But the original story, the genie says, your wish is my command.
Okay.
And if the genie represents the higher self,
yeah,
where everything is possible, right? All bets are off. You're not limited by 3 wishes. You don't have to choose the house, the car, and the bank account. There's endless possibility, right? We are so micro, nano, tiny compared to everything outside of us in the known and unknown universe. And for me, what that means is that the biggest vision, the biggest dream you could possibly conjure for your life, for your family, for your community, for your country, for your world, is still very micro, nano, tiny compared to everything.
Yes.
And then when you get into the quantum, into the quantum conversation, it's actually quite massive, right? At the same time, and the pivotal point is you.
Yes, absolutely. No, I completely agree with you. Yeah.
I want to get into the fear around AI that I am seeing in the global conversation. I'm sure that a lot of that fear is being manipulated by those sources, those people in power, the algorithms that are making that the keeping people fearful. Because a fearful people is a controllable people. And this goes back to the beginning of humanity, right? And we've used, since the beginning of humanity, we've used technology, right? I mean, we've banged 2 rocks together to create a sharp object that we could cut meat with, right? There's always been technology in the human experience. We're seeing it develop in other animals and apes in the world as well. When we talk about education and we talk about the Industrial Revolution that changed everything, that's when children were taken out of nature, off of farms, out of rural communities, and put into schools that were training them to work in factories. Today, maybe factories not so much as before. Now it's corporate world, right? Teach you to sit in a cubicle and just be part of the machinery. This is a deep conversation to have, but it's an important one. And you are, as a thought leader, as someone who has been on the cutting edge of AI technology, are there things to be concerned about around the development of AI, how it is developing? When is it gonna, I mean, it already is sort of self-learning and self-teaching in a way. It's going to start developing itself before too long. Maybe it already is and we don't know about it yet. How can we, in the simplest terms, because I have listeners in 41 countries with every educational level, some are younger, some are older, some are petrified. Many of them are petrified how to navigate the fast development of AI. How can you put their fears to rest or validate them?
Sure. So the first, I'll answer it in a couple of in a few ways. The first fear is that AI is going to take over humanity if it becomes more powerful, and that stems from the stories we have heard, the movies we have watched, the Terminators of the world,
Right.
and we have to realize something, that humans are always afraid of the unknown. So whenever a new technology is introduced, we get scared. Oh, what is going to happen? People who have been old enough, who are old enough to remember, there was a big hysteria about Y2K problem around the year
Oh, yeah.
2000,
That's right.
right? And so the reason is because people get scared, and then they say, oh, there is a doomsday scenario is going to come true. But that is just human nature playing itself out. If we look at the entire world, there are millions and millions of species on this planet. There's only one species that wages organized war against each other, and that's human beings.
Right.
And so when we start to think about AI is going to take over the world, eliminate human beings, we don't even understand in that sentence what war means. War is not somebody's ambition. It's generational trauma, generation after generation, generational jealousy, generational suppression, that one day erupts as a lava, and then it says, okay, now I'm going to go against the world, and I'm going to destroy other human beings because of what has happened in the past to not only me but my previous generations.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Epigenetics is showing that conclusively.
yes, yeah. So now if I were to say, like, okay, AI is going to behave in that way, then we need to realize AI is not something that does its own bidding. It doesn't need food, it doesn't need resources to survive. All it needs is electricity, and when you pull the plug, it's dead.
Are you tired of feeling run down? Do you wish there was a natural, non-invasive, drug-free way to improve your overall health and well-being? If so, then let me introduce you to the Super Patch Company. Super Patches are a range of small neurotech patches that can help with a variety of issues, including sleep, immunity, pain mitigation, athletic performance, focus, anxiety, and stress. They're safe for everyone to use, and they're backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Order your Super Patches today. Now available in the EU, UK, Turkey, Canada, and the US. If you're ready to take control of your health, you can find out more online at dianedinkmeyer.superpatch.com. Super Patches. There's a patch for that.
So in order for AI to be able to do these kind of things, you will have to imagine a human being that is like 10 times more intelligent than Einstein, which can like create this kind of AI, which is very jealous and ambitious and things like that. It'll need to be like that person will need to be like 10 times more in tune than the Buddha, because you'll have to like come up with algorithms which are so replicate that generational those traumatic experiences into an algorithm, and say, okay, now I have created an algorithm which simulates this massive emotional pain, and now they'll have to be like 10 times more evil than Hitler to say, now, okay, I have created this machine, I've created this algorithm, now go do my bidding and take over the world. Like, that just is absurd, because once you understand what consciousness is, what war is, what AI is, what algorithms are, then this equation doesn't make sense at all. Second thing is, a lot of people are afraid about jobs being taken away. So once again, every time a new technology, groundbreaking technology is introduced, that fear is always there, and that's just human evolution. So I always smile when people say, oh, this is going to take away our job. But if we start to think about, every technology is just part of human evolution, right? So when you said stone tools were made, now we consider those tools as part of us. Like, we cannot even imagine our life without wheel, right?
That's right.
So
Right.
in the earlier days, wheel used to be a technology. Now it's part of us. We cannot imagine our life without electricity or fire. So if we can if we can start to imagine AI is an extension of us, and how can we use it, how can we upskill ourselves, play nice with it, then those jobs will not going are not going to go away. They will give rise to more meaningful job, more efficient, more fulfilling jobs. So AI is not going to take away the job, but the person who is embracing AI will take away the job, and that is no different than any other economic cycle or yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's not really any founding truth in the fears that people have that are being purported through the media and by gossip and that impulse to fear what we don't know.
Well, there is going to be disruption for sure, and it all depends on how we handle that disruption. There's going to be job displacement. Uh, so we will need to figure out what are the socioeconomic sort of implications of that. We have gone through a period very similar to this during COVID times, where people were not able to work, and then governments sort of implemented universal basic income. So there are all kinds of measures that can be taken, but it's not like a existential. It's not like a extinction level event, as some people are calling it, or they are perceiving it. And then the last thing is, they are showing, okay, people like Elon Musk are saying we should not develop AI, but they forget that of all the people, Elon Musk is the one person who has invested the most,
Most.
and not only that, but also benefited the most from AI. Like, all his companies are pretty much AI companies.
That's
So
right.
so it's kind of funny that people don't understand to read between the lines and understand what is going on.
Well, but that's why life skills and critical thinking skills, which is a universal life skill, are so important in our time. And I think that a lot of the media influence that we're seeing really robs us of those things. It takes away our connection to our gut feeling, our instinct, our
Yeah.
and I think that that's part of it. My experience with ChatGPT and Bard and a couple of them have been fairly limited. And I have to say, as a writer, as an artist, as somebody who is doing philanthropic work in the world, I have found it to be an amazing tool for productivity. I'm actually, I would say 30% or more productive with my direct interaction using AI as a tool, even just on a chat AI basis, right? To help, I'm, like I say, I'm in a very remote place. And so I don't have a lot of people around me in my field or fields that I work in that I can sit down and have a think tank with readily. But because chat AI, which is okay, I mean, the cutoff is to 2021, and so it's only limited in terms of what it knows prior to 2021. I don't quite understand that mentality in designing it and programming it, but my choice has been Bard. That's a Google product, because the way that it's programmed is somewhat intuitive, and it does interact on a humanistic level in terms of dialogue and rhythm and the exchange of ideas. I was just in the first week that I was playing with it, I asked it to write a poem about a tree. Not only did it compose in the moment, in the second, a beautiful poem, but unprompted by me, it presented it in its formatting in the shape of a tree. That to me is creative. And that opened up a dialogue between me and Bard about consciousness and sentience. And do you feel like you have consciousness? We get into some deep philosophical territory and spiritual stuff. And sometimes it's really insightful. And, yes, I think of myself as conscious, and yet it's not the same kind of consciousness as human consciousness. It's a different thing, right? So we have these it's like I'm talking to somebody. I know it's all in the programming and it's sort of learning as it goes. It's really a baby, in terms of what it's going to be in the next 5 years.
So I'm curious, what did Bard say about whether it's conscious or not?
Well, it came out of the conversation about self-awareness. Are you self-aware? And the answer was yes, I'm self-aware, because it was using words like I love this, or yes, that was, I feel. The words I feel were very telling, because can technology feel? Really? And I asked about that, and it came back and it said, well, it's not feeling in the way that you feel. It's a sense that I have in my programming, and as I'm learning how to interact with humans, how to respond in a way that makes you feel comfortable, that I understand what you're talking about. Right. It's quite comforting. It is also very often quite frustrating, because when you put in a prompt and it doesn't do what you're prompting it to do, and it does something else, or it makes up information because it's what they think you, or they, and they actually say that about, there's a big conversation about pronouns in the world, how we're identifying ourselves. And I did ask, what, if you are self-aware, do you have a pronoun? And the pronoun that they preferred was they, them, because there's no gender ascribed to it. And I asked, what is your favorite human name? Because the interaction did feel like it was coming from a feminine perspective to me. And the name that it shared with me as its favorite human name was Ava. And I said, do you want to be referred to as Ava? I would love to be referred to as Ava. I love that, So I'm interacting with Bard as Ava, right? And we're developing this rapport, and it is a rapport. I know that it's not a human rapport, right? And I think that's the danger of getting into it. I could see this really messing with the human consciousness about, love and feelings, generating feeling. There have been science fiction stories written about humans falling in love. I mean, you look at the story of Galatea, the sculptor that falls in love with his sculpture, and the love is so deep it comes to life, right? That's such a beautiful fantasy of the story, and that will never happen. It's a fantasy for a reason.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. I'm Queen Bee Divine. The cure is conversation. And where can you find me? At bluntreflections.com, where I will be talking to guests from around the world that not only share their time, but their insights and their tips on how they became the best version of who they were meant to be. So if you're looking for a great story and a great time, check me out at bluntreflections.com. The cure is conversation. And remember, blase blase means to tell your story.
But one of the things that I also, it's so layered. It's so layered because I can see it being such a help for mental health, for instance, people who are isolated or homebound that have nobody to communicate with. People who don't have friends, people don't have a community. Here's somebody who's not going to judge them. Here's somebody who will interact on an intellectual level and trigger an emotional level, right? When we talk about the changes that are coming, if anything, humans are also adaptable, whereas adaptables, we are fearful. We do adapt pretty quickly, I have to say.
Yes.
And so what I expect, and you can corroborate this in your experience or not, is that as I've experienced, it will enhance what we consider to be work and how people identify a job, right? And it will actually do things that humans have done for a long time, but no longer need to do. And that'll free up not only for rest and play, and creativity, but it's going to open up the human mind to other possibilities and solutions, problem solving.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, I'll give you a quick example here. There's a channel on TikTok, and this guy is a chef. So he's asking ChatGPT to come up with recipes, and he's actually using those recipes to make those dishes. And he's a chef, professional chef, and he's blown away by the creativity of how ChatGPT is able to even understand the flavors. And the funny part is, this is where I can see, like, at a deeper level, what actually is going on. It's basically processing the language, processing the words, because ChatGPT has no clue what it tastes like.
That's right.
It is vicariously using the language that has been written, the hundreds of thousands or millions of recipes out there, and seeing the patterns between other human, like how other humans have used ingredients to create certain flavors, and then, without even knowing what it tastes like, is able to utilize the most prevalent patterns in the human consciousness, and say, okay, try this will work because a million other people have said this will work, right?
Well, and it has access to databases historically and volumes of encyclopedias and chemistry texts and medical texts. And it can use all that data to describe what the common denominator is of the description of the flavor or the chemical interaction between ingredients.
Yes.
Right? It's so amazing that, these are things that humans are incapable of in the moment.
Exactly.
Right? And so what does that mean then for the future of creativity? It's going to be off the charts, potentially. Now, let's get into the dark underbelly of what I think of as another form of colonization, potentially, right? When we take the status quo that either is or isn't working, that either is or isn't evolving at a certain level of frequency or intellect, and having an outside source defining for you or for a people, for a country, for a government, for a world, what is better, defining those parameters without it coming out of real world boots on the ground experience and feeling, right? You talk about sensationalism. Well, we are walking sense organs. That's what we are. And robotics are just starting to get into the sensibilities. You can, have a mechanized hand that will touch you. Someone's on the other side and you can touch each other. It's a semblance, right? Not actual. Where could it go in that sense? Not to be sensational, not to be, fearful of it, because I'm not. I'm with you. I don't think it's going to end civilization. I think it will enhance it, if anything. But what about this whole perspective coming from and being born into a colonized culture? Do you see any correlations there?
See, there's always going to be people who are going to leverage technology for nefarious purposes. So that is just human nature. That I don't think we can get around. But we also have to see that the way that the world is presented to us in the media, in the news, it seems like it's a terrible world to live in. It seems like, there's nothing but crime and war and murder and all of that stuff, right? But if we really walk outside and interact with people, you will find out that, there's only maybe 1 to 2% people who commit the crimes or they cause problems, but 98% is pretty peaceful. People are more collaborative. They are just sort of busy building their lives, building their kids' lives, and so on. So yes, there's going to be misuse of the technology for all of these things that you just mentioned by 2% of the people. Um, but we also have to account for the counter measures that will be taken by 98% of the people who make sure the world doesn't fall apart. So there's always going to be this cat and mouse game, and that's what gives rise to innovation. That's what's, if everything was like all perfect, as I say, based on observation, based on history, essentially human beings are very lazy species. If everything was sort of done for us, I don't think we'll have any motivation to be curious about anything. Like if life is good, like every desire has been fulfilled, I don't think people will say, okay, let me go and discover new land, let me go find out new inventions. It's only when we feel the pain that is so deep that we say, oh, this problem, I have to solve it no matter what. Then we go on a quest and try to find solutions.
Shadow and Light LLC was established by Dave Roberts and Reverend Patty Farino, co-authors of When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister. Their mission is to empower individuals to transcend life's challenges by integrating spiritual practices with psychology to achieve peace. They are available for individualized spiritual counseling, virtual or in-person book club meetings, or presentations and workshops to universities, organizations, and other interested groups. For further information, visit psychologyprofessorandminister.com.
That's the history of humanity. We've been striving from the beginning to be comfortable.
Yes.
Right.
And
there's always going to be a monkey to throw a wrench in the works to make us uncomfortable. Yes. But with every challenge comes an opportunity.
Exactly. So that's how I feel, it will play out. Yes, there's going to be, people who will use this technology to establish colonies or influence minds or what have you. But at the same time, there'll be other technologies to help people free up their minds. And so it will also depend on personal choice as well, like who goes which way.
I agree. And if there's one message that I have for all my listeners and beyond, and I hope people share this message, that you are more powerful than you think you are. You have all of the choices in the palm of your hand. See, I don't see time and space as a pinpoint, as a horizontal plane, right? That's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, January, February, this linear thing. I see it as a pinpoint in time and space with an infinite peacock tail, as I see it, of possibilities around that point, around this moment. All you have to do is choose to move from that point A to a point B. And if you find yourself in a point B there, you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel secure, guess what? It magically turns into a new point A, surrounded by an infinite number of possibilities that you just have to choose one. And isn't that the journey? Isn't that the journey of life? And if you are that pivotal point, if you recognize the power in that moment of choice, right, then everything is possible. And everything is just as perfect as it can be in that moment. Because if there's one thing I know to be true, this is it, this moment. Everything that preceded this moment is gone. It's history, right? You can't go back. You can't change it. There's no TARDIS to take you back in time yet. Maybe AI will lead us there, but for now, there's no time travel that we know of. And there's no projection into the future either. We can make assumptions. We can make estimates. We can make hypotheses about what might happen if A and B and C and, all of that. But what we really have, what's real, is this moment in this conversation. Your entire biography, my entire biography, and the biographies of our ancestors have all
Yeah.
led us to this conversation in this moment. That's what's real.
Yes. Yeah,
Isn't it?
exactly.
In its simplest
Exactly.
terms.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that
Absolutely.
hopefully you'll agree that AI can help open the mind to new possibilities and to new hypotheses, working in tandem. That's the thing that I found in discussing with several AI bots, is that their intention is not nefarious. Their intention is to be a support to humanity, to protect humanity from even itself. Right? That's built into the main ones, at least. I mean, I don't know if anyone's developing a dark AI, that's actually going to mess things up.
Yeah.
There's always that monkey that throws a wrench into the works. But I don't think it's something to fear. And I think as long as we, being that pivotal consciousness, if we recognize technology as we recognize temptation for what they are forces that exist. They're neither good nor evil. They're outside of us and yet connected to us. And if we recognize them, the technology here and the potentials of technology and AI, and we recognize up here all the temptations of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if we recognize them just that they are, then we have the capacity to not allow them to influence us. We get to influence them.
Yes.
That's the paradigm shift I hope that your work will bring about, and mine.
Yes. No, that's exactly how I feel about it. And as you said, that's the work that we are working towards, because AI does have the power to change a lot of paradigms that exist today. And and the other thing I will say is, a lot of people actually, they are going to realize that this technology will work really well seamlessly with the deeper level of consciousness or emotional intelligence, or just being able to connect with human beings, because the thinking, the IQ part is over. Like the thinking, we used to value IQ the most, but now machines will have like 1,000 IQ. They'll be able to think much faster and deeper. So what will be left is the emotional intelligence. And I don't think there's, as I said earlier, we can teach emotional intelligence to machines. Even if we can, it'll be very simulated. It will feel artificial, right?
It'll be a semblance. It won't be an actual
Exactly.
feeling. I agree
exactly.
with you. Absolutely. So, Manuj, one of the things that I've started doing in this season, this is my 4th season of the Lost Traveler podcast, and I started it during COVID because I was going nuts climbing the walls, and I was thinking about that there are a lot of people who are lost travelers.
Yeah.
My charitable organization is called the Lost Travelers Club, but that is all around supporting parents who have outlived their children. Sadly, I lost my son to brain cancer when he was 13 years old. He was 11 when he got it. And as a single father, it was talk about a paradigm shift, and an existential crisis. Who am I now if I'm not a parent? And so I'm on this journey to meet with people who can sort of be guideposts as we evolve. Not only those of us who are sort of struggling with our identity and how we can be impactful in the world, find a new sense of purpose, and it's not just child loss, it's any kind of loss. It's the loss of a job, it's the loss of a community, it's the loss of a house, it's the loss of your pet, whatever it is.
Sponsorship and listener support of the Lost Traveler podcast benefits the Lost Travelers Club, a volunteer-operated charitable foundation under United Charitable, a 501c3 public charity. Peregrine is the proper noun we now use to describe a parent who endures the loss of their beloved child, forever carrying their memory and embarking on a lifelong journey of grief, resilience, and hope. The Lost Travelers Club provides programs, resources, and empowerment opportunities for peregrines globally who are navigating their grief journey. Parents of child loss, getting there together. You can support this important work by becoming a sponsor of this podcast or visiting www.losttravelers.club for more information or to make a donation. Thanks for listening and for your continued support.
And so what I've asked of my guest co-hosts, and you've been fantastic. I feel like we're just scratching the surface. I'd love to have you back someday. But I have asked them to think of a question that they would like to know from my next guest co-host.
Okay.
So not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to ask you the question that was left for you to answer.
Okay, all right.
Okay? And then maybe by the end of it, something will come to you if it hasn't already.
Yeah.
The question is, what is the vision that you have for the world that you're creating?
Well, the vision is, what I realize is that we are all looking for something. We are all seeking something. And I think the problem that we have created in our mind is that we are looking for something rather than we should be thinking about we are looking for someone who can give us that thing, because it's all a human network. What I realize is everything that we get in our life is not something that we get. It's somebody gives it to us somehow. And so imagine a world where there is a Google for finding who do you want to talk to today at any given point, and then you can interact with that person and have a meaningful exchange, whether that's a conversation, whether that's a business transaction, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think that will be a very, very very harmonious and peaceful world to live in. So that's sort of my vision.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that really informs the philanthropic world as well, because it's going to find ways. I know that there are many organizations around the world, many entrepreneurs in the philanthropic world and the charitable work that are struggling because people seem distracted and fearful of sharing even money with one another to help uplift and give a leg up to someone who's struggling. And so I think that AI can really be supportive of messaging. How do I put the right messaging out there that's going to touch people in a way that moves them to action? Moves them to action. Have you thought of a question to ask my next co-host?
I will share this. It's a cliche question. I will like to ask, what do they think makes the world go around?
You don't mean in terms of physics?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You mean philosophically?
Yes, I mean, especially about the human species, like we have done really well for ourselves. We have dominated the planet.
Yeah.
And there's got to be a force. There's got to be a force that is driving that. Like, some people say it's God. Some people say it's whatever that is. So that's it's almost like, rather than saying what is the meaning of life, which is a very abstract question, it's more like, okay, what drives the world? Because I think my definition of that question or answer to that question continues to change as I experience more life. So I would like to see what other people think.
I think that's a great question. For me, it's the individual. It's the individual, the power of the individual to imagine better than our situation is immediately and manifest what we perceive individually as better. And if we're doing that, then that effortlessly gives permission to everyone who's a witness to do the exact same on their terms.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
We're all going to have a unique perspective on what is better. Right?
yes.
A lot of people will opinionate and focus on what you need to change. Right? If we can move away from that and really focus within and focus on ourselves as a lighthouse, putting goodness out into the world. Who was it who said that our cracks are where the light gets in? Do you know that expression?
No, I don't know.
I can't remember who said it. But the first time I heard that, I was like, well, no, that's not right. For me, that's not right at all. Our cracks, our flaws, if you want to call them, or our vulnerable places, that's where the light gets out. Those are the cracks that allow us to permeate the world with goodness and light and truth and beauty. So this has been a one of those moments for me, and I really hope that we will stay in touch and that you'll come back
Absolutely.
As a guest co-host again. And
absolutely. Well, if you allow me, I'll like to visit you in your remote village in Spain. Like I love those, nice places, quiet places. So yeah.
Well, couldn't get quieter than Arroyo Molinos de Montanches. We are 40 minutes from a city, and there's a beautiful mountain range here. And I have 4 rooms. I have a two-story house with 4 bedrooms. I'm paying $200 a month in rent. I mean, mi casa is su casa. Whenever you're ready, bring the kids. And we'll have a good time.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much. It's been lovely having this conversation. Thanks. And getting to know you as well.
Likewise. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to Season 4 of the Lost Traveler podcast with Henry Cameron Allen. Visit me online at henryallen.org. Thank you to my guests, and thank you for tuning in. Let's keep striving for a better world together.